Order. Order in the Grand Chamber. Supreme Councilor Vex'thor's voice boomed through the crystalline hall, causing several of the more gelatinous council members to ripple in alarm. We are gathered here today to address what may be the greatest threat to galactic stability since the Great Space Goose migration of Cycle 47. The assembled representatives of the Galactic Council shifted uncomfortably in their anti-gravity seats. Some reached for their data tablets, others nervously adjusted their universal translators, and at least one representative from the gaseous cluster appeared to be stress vaporizing. The human's Vex'thor continued, pausing for dramatic effect, as his antennae twitched in what his species considered a grave expression. "Have done it again." A collective groan echoed through the chamber. Administrator Blorp, a sentient puddle of highly educated goo, raised what might have been an appendage. "What did they do this time? Please tell me they haven't discovered another fundamental force of nature by accident." "Worse," Vex'thor replied, activating the holographic display. "They've started putting little hats on their cleaning robots and giving them names." The chamber erupted in chaos. Several council members began filing immediate requests for emergency funding to study the psychological implications. 3 different species simultaneously declared their intention to update their risk assessment matrices. The representative from the Silicon Consciousness Collective crashed and had to be rebooted. "Silence," Vex'thor thundered, his crystalline podium resonating with the force of his voice. "We need a proper investigation, a thorough, methodical, by-the-book study of these beings who seem to defy every logical convention we hold dear. And for that we need our finest bureaucrat." The chamber fell silent as all eyes, optical sensors, and sensory arrays turned toward the small figure seated in the corner, meticulously organizing his data crystals by both color and refractive index. Admiral Krix hadn't moved since the meeting began. His species, the Regulax, were renowned throughout the galaxy for their dedication to proper procedure and their ability to file reports so comprehensive they occasionally achieved sentience. Krix himself had once submitted a report on the improper filing of reports that was so thorough it had to be classified as a potential artificial intelligence. Admiral Krix Vex'thor called out, "Will you accept this mission? Will you travel to Earth, study these humans, and prepare a full report on what makes them so terrifying?" suggested a councillor. "Unpredictable," offered another. "Adorably deadly," chimed in a third. "All of the above," Vex'thor concluded. Krix finally looked up from his data crystals, his 4 eyes blinking in perfect synchronization. "I accept this mission, Supreme Councilor. I shall prepare preliminary forms of 7 through Z92, requisition the necessary observation equipment via the standard channels, and begin my journey once all the proper paperwork has been filed in triplicate." "How long will that take?" Vex'thor asked, immediately regretting the question. According to Regulation 5, subparagraph 3.2.1, Section Gamma, regarding the preparation time for investigations of potentially hazardous species, Krix consulted one of his data crystals, approximately 7 standard cycles. 7 cycles, Vex'thor's antennae drooped. "But this is an emergency." Krix brightened, pulling out a different crystal. "In that case, we can use the emergency protocol exception form X11 red. This will allow us to expedite the process to 6.5 cycles. The Supreme Councilor slumped in his chair. "Very well. Begin your preparations, Admiral, and may the great bureaucracy have mercy on your filing system." As the council members filed out, each submitting the required exit form B15 Emergency Session Edition, Krix remained behind, already beginning to fill out the first of what would become the most comprehensive collection of reports on any species in galactic history. He had no way of knowing that his meticulous notes would soon be filled with observations that would defy explanation, challenge his sanity, and force him to create entirely new forms just to document the sheer improbability of human behavior. But for now, he was happy. He had his forms, his data crystals, and a clear mission. What could possibly go wrong? The answer, had anyone been able to provide it, would have required several new filing categories and at least 2 emergency addenda. After 6.5 cycles of meticulous preparation and 1 minor nervous breakdown over a misplaced form, Admiral Krix's research vessel achieved orbit around Earth. His first action, naturally, was to file an arrival report C16 potentially hazardous species subdivision. Computer Krix addressed his ship's AI, begin preliminary scan of the planet's surface. We need to locate the most statistically average human for our first contact protocol. Processing, the computer responded. Warning, humans display such varying characteristics that average requires 17 new mathematical formulas to calculate. Krix's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, his version of a weary sigh. Just find someone who won't cause an interstellar incident. The computer whirred for several minutes. Subject located. David Miller. Occupation, middle management at a medium-sized paper supply company. Hobbies, watching cooking shows without ever actually cooking. Greatest achievement, once successfully assembled IKEA furniture with only minor emotional trauma. Perfect, Krix declared, already starting to fill out contact subject selection form D19. What is the subject doing now? Subject is currently in his apartment, attempting to decide whether to do laundry now or convince himself that his socks can last one more day. Dave Miller was indeed contemplating his laundry situation when a shaft of silvery light materialized in his living room, directly between his coffee table and the TV that was playing yet another baking show he'd never attempt to replicate. Greetings, David Miller of Earth Krix announced, emerging from the beam in full ceremonial bureaucratic regalia, complete with a sash displaying his filing efficiency ratings. I come in peace, and in accordance with Galactic Protocol 7 billion regarding first contact with potentially hazardous species. Dave looked up from his sock inspection. Alien life. Neat. He paused the TV. Want some coffee? I was about to make a pot anyway. Krix's tentacles twitched in confusion. This wasn't in the protocol. Where was the panic? The awe? The mandatory 15-minute period of existential crisis that most species experienced upon first contact? I have forms, Krix managed, pulling out a stack of official documents. You're supposed to fill these out before any cultural exchange can begin. Forms? Man, I get enough of those at work, Dave replied, shuffling toward his kitchen. But seriously, coffee? I've got this fancy beans a friend gave me that I've been meaning to try. According to Section 5 of the First Contact Protocol, we must first establish Krix began, but was interrupted by a loud grinding noise. Sorry, Dave called over the sound of his coffee grinder. Can't hear you over the beans. You'll have to speak up. Krix felt his order-loving mind beginning to crack. He consulted his emergency procedures manual, but found nothing about how to handle a subject who seemed more interested in beverage preparation than proper documentation. When Dave returned with 2 mugs, Krix had spread his forms across the coffee table in what his species considered a threatening display of bureaucratic dominance. Now then, Krix said firmly, we must proceed with the formal questioning about your species' capabilities, starting with Form E23 evaluation of potential threats to galactic stability. Dave took a sip of his coffee and peered at the form. Hey, these kinda look like the TPS reports we use at work. Though ours don't usually glow in the dark. These are official Galactic Council documents. They require proper respect, and Krix stopped abruptly as Dave set his coffee mug down on Form E23, leaving a ring on the section about weapons capabilities. Oops, sorry about that, Dave said, grabbing a nearby magazine to wipe up the coffee. Unfortunately, the magazine only succeeded in smudging the luminescent ink, causing the form to start emitting a faint humming sound. That was a quantum-encrypted document, Krix whispered in horror. The coffee has caused a security breach. Emergency protocols must now be. He trailed off as the form began to fold itself into an origami swan. Dave watched with interest. Cool. Can all your papers do that? Krix's universal translator struggled to process the string of bureaucratic expletives that followed. In his species' culture, what had just happened was equivalent to causing an international incident while simultaneously insulting someone's ancestral filing system. Computer Krix called out to his ship. Emergency extraction. The subject has weaponized hot beverages against official documentation. As the beam of light began to rematerialize around him, Dave called out, Hey, you're welcome to come back any time. Next time I'll break out the good biscuits. You know, the ones from the tin that grandmas always use for sewing supplies. Back on his ship, Krix immediately began filing an incident report X99 unexpected beverage interactions with official documentation. His tentacles were still shaking as he typed. Subject displayed unprecedented levels of casualness in the face of first contact. Recommend immediate study of human capacity for treating universe-altering events as mundane occurrences. Also recommend waterproofing all future forms. As an afterthought, he added note research needed on substance known as coffee and its apparent ability to disrupt quantum encrypted materials. Additional note: what are biscuits and why are they stored with sewing supplies? After filing 17 reports about his first encounter with Dave Miller, Admiral Krix decided to approach the situation from a more scientific angle. He began by analyzing the mysterious substance that had disrupted his quantum encrypted documentation. Computer, what exactly is this coffee substance? Krix asked, studying the molecular scan of the residue from his ruined form. Coffee, a beverage prepared from roasted seeds of various species of an earth plant. Contains caffeine, a psychoactive compound. Humans consume it for error-conflicting data. Humans appear to both need and not need this substance simultaneously. That's impossible, Krix muttered, adding a note to his observation log. Further investigation required. Which is how Admiral Krix found himself materializing in Dave Miller's apartment at 11:30 p.m. Earth time, only to find his research subjects surrounded by empty coffee mugs and furiously typing on a laptop. "Oh hey, alien dude," Dave looked up, his eyes slightly too wide. "Perfect timing. I've got this massive presentation tomorrow that I totally forgot about, so I'm pulling an all-nighter. Want some coffee?" "I'm on my 6th cup." Krix's universal translator struggled with the phrase "pulling an all-nighter" for several seconds before displaying an error message. You're intentionally depriving yourself of your species' required rest cycle and consuming multiple doses of a psychoactive substance to achieve this. "Yeah, pretty much standard procedure for deadline stuff," Dave shrugged, reaching for his coffee pot. "Corporate life, am I right? Though I probably shouldn't have had that energy drink at 9 p.m. I can taste colors now." Krix's tentacles curled in horror as he began emergency documentation. This is deliberate self-modification of consciousness for work productivity. "Well, when you say it like that, it sounds weird," Dave replied, somehow managing to type, drink coffee, and eat a snack labeled extreme caffeine rush all at the same time. "Usually I just make it through with coffee, but sometimes you need that extra kick, you know." "No," Krix stated flatly, "I do not know. My species achieves maximum efficiency through proper scheduling and adequate rest periods." Dave laughed, a slightly manic sound. "Oh man, that must be nice. Hey, watch this, I can recite the entire quarterly report backwards while doing jumping jacks." Before Krix could protest, Dave was indeed performing jumping jacks while spouting reversed financial data at an alarming speed. The Admiral quickly added another note: humans appear to gain new abilities when overcharged with stimulants, though the usefulness of these abilities is questionable. Computer, Krix whispered to his ship's AI, "Is this normal human behavior?" Scanning global data. Approximately 73% of human office workers engage in similar behavior. Some humans appear to function primarily on a mixture of caffeine, deadline panic, and what they refer to as spite. But how do they survive? Krix watched in fascination as Dave started reorganizing his entire filing system while humming show tunes and occasionally stopping to do desk push-ups. Insufficient data. Human resilience exceeds known biological parameters. Recommendation: update species threat assessment. As the night progressed, Krix observed in mounting horror as Dave consumed what should have been a lethal amount of caffeine, redesigned his entire presentation 3 times, invented a new organizational system that somehow made both perfect and zero sense, and briefly achieved what appeared to be caffeine-induced enlightenment before crashing face first into his keyboard at 5:47 a.m. "Computer, prepare emergency medical response team," Krix said urgently as Dave began to snore. "Unnecessary. Scan indicates subject will awaken in approximately 2 hours, consume more coffee, and attend his presentation as if nothing unusual occurred." That's not possible," Krix protested. "Correct. And yet, humans do this regularly." Krix spent the next hour filling out a new form he had to create specifically for this situation: report on voluntary consciousness modification for productivity enhancement via stimulant overconsumption and sleep deprivation, with notes on apparent violation of known laws of biology. Just as the computer predicted, at 7:52 a.m., Dave jerked awake, peeled a post-it note off his forehead, and immediately reached for the coffee pot. "Morning," he said cheerfully to the still-present Admiral. Thanks for keeping me company during my all-nighter. Want to grab breakfast? I know this great place that makes coffee so strong it needs a warning label. Krix fled back to his ship, his tentacles shaking as he added one final note to his report update threat assessment. Humans do not merely survive chaos, they appear to thrive on it. Most worrying of all, they seem to have weaponized their own sleep deprivation into a productivity tool. The implications are terrifying. After the coffee incident, Admiral Krix realized he needed professional help. Unfortunately, the only xenobiologist available on short notice was Lieutenant Petula, whose last research paper was titled "Why Don't More Species Dance?" A comprehensive study of galactic party potential. Oh my! Stars Petula bounced excitedly around the ship's laboratory, her bioluminescent spots flashing in what Krix's species considered an unnecessarily enthusiastic pattern. Real humans. I can't wait to start the experiments. Did you know they sometimes communicate entirely in pictures of cats? Lieutenant Krix's tentacles twitched with barely contained irritation. We need to conduct serious, methodical research into human capabilities. According to Form T-47, we must first establish their baseline physical and mental. Already set up the tests, Petula interrupted, her spots now spelling out science in 7 different colors. I've prepared a series of standard assessment chambers, though I had to modify them a bit. Did you know humans need constant snacks? Fascinating. Dave Miller arrived at the ship's testing facility 15 minutes late, carrying a cup of gas station coffee and a half-eaten breakfast burrito. Sorry about the delay. Traffic was wild. Some guy tried to merge without signaling and everyone decided to take it personally. Perfect timing. Petula zipped over to Dave, already taking readings with 3 different scanners. We'll start with basic physical capabilities. Please step into Chamber 1. Chamber 1 was designed to test reaction speed through a series of increasingly complex obstacle courses. Petula had helpfully labeled it the bouncy room of science. Now Krix began, pulling out his official testing documentation. According to protocol, you should carefully observe the obstacles and formulate a strategic. Dave tripped entering the chamber, somehow managed to turn the fall into a roll, accidentally triggered all the obstacles at once, and ended up completing the course in record time while trying to save his coffee. Incredible. Petula's spots were now flashing so rapidly they were probably visible from Earth. The subject displayed unprecedented agility while prioritizing beverage preservation. Notes: human coordination appears to increase exponentially when protecting consumables. That doesn't count, Krix protested. He didn't follow the proper procedure for Chamber 2, Petula announced, already ushering Dave toward a room labeled the Thinky Box. Chamber 2 was designed to test problem-solving abilities through a series of logic puzzles. Dave approached the first puzzle, a complex 3-dimensional shape that needed to be unraveled in a specific sequence. Heard Dave said, examining the puzzle. This kind of reminds me of trying to untangle my headphones after they've been in my pocket. He then proceeded to solve the puzzle, using what he called the pocket principle, essentially treating it the same way he dealt with tangled earbuds. It shouldn't have worked. It definitely violated several laws of geometry. Somehow it did work. Fascinating. Petula was now vibrating with excitement. Subject approaches complex problems by applying solutions from seemingly unrelated everyday experiences. Also appears to be casually ignoring at least 2 fundamental laws of physics. That's not how you're supposed to. Krix began, but was cut off by Petula's enthusiastic push toward Chamber 3, which she had decorated with what appeared to be party streamers. Now for the stress response test, she announced cheerfully. We'll simulate various crisis scenarios to measure human adaptation capabilities. The chamber began generating holographic emergencies, mechanical failures, security breaches, and various other catastrophes. Dave, still nursing his coffee, responded to each crisis with what he called classic office strategies. He fixed a plasma leak by turning it off and on again. He resolved a security breach by sending a passive-aggressive email about proper airlock protocol. He even managed to prevent a theoretical space-time collapse by applying what he called the same principle as clearing a paper jam. This is not proper procedure. Krix finally exploded, his tentacles tangled in distress. You can't fix a quantum anomaly by treating it like office equipment. But it worked, Dave pointed out, taking another sip of his now cold coffee. Kind of like how Jerry in accounting technically isn't qualified to fix the printer, but he's the only one who can make it work by whispering to it gently. Tula's final report was both extensive and concerning. The subject demonstrates remarkable ability to achieve correct outcomes through completely incorrect methods. Human problem-solving appears to operate on its own unique logic that somehow functions despite, or perhaps because of, its complete departure from established principles. She added, her spots spelling out best research day ever. Additional observation: humans appear to transfer skills from one context to completely unrelated contexts with surprising success. Subject treated advanced technology with the same casual approach as primitive Earth office equipment, somehow achieving optimal results. Krix, meanwhile, had to create yet another new form report on irregular success through improper methodology with notes on violation of standard testing protocols and inexplicable achievement of desired outcomes. One last test, Tula announced, bouncing toward a chamber marked with multiple warning signs and decorative glitter. Actually, Dave checked his phone. I should probably head back. Got a team meeting in an hour, and Karen always brings her homemade kombucha that she insists everyone tries. But we haven't completed the official testing sequence, Krix protested. Don't worry, Dave said, already heading toward the exit. I'm sure whatever it is, it's probably like that time we had to reorganize the supply closet during a power outage. You just kind of wing it and hope for the best. As Dave left, Tula turned to Krix, her spots now forming a complex pattern that, roughly translated to humans, are basically chaos given consciousness, and I love it. Krix just stared at his ruined testing schedule and wondered if perhaps the real threat humans posed to the galaxy was their ability to succeed without following a single proper procedure. The revelation. Admiral Krix sat in his ship's office, surrounded by mountains of reports, data crystals, and coffee-stained forms. After weeks of observation, testing, and filling out enough paperwork to deforest a small planet, he was no closer to understanding what made humans so dangerous. Computer, he sighed, all 4 eyes fixed on his final report draft. Analyze all our data on human behavior. There has to be a pattern we're missing. Processing. Analysis complete. Error: no pattern found. Humans appear to succeed through a combination of improvisation, caffeine, and what they call winging it. That's not possible, Krix muttered, reshuffling his papers. Every species has a pattern, a logical progression of development. Even the quantum jellyfish of Sector 7 follow predictable laws of probability. Incorrect, the computer replied. Humans demonstrate consistent success through inconsistent methods. Example subject Dave Miller has achieved optimal outcomes in 87% of observed scenarios while following proper procedures in only 3% of cases. Krix was about to protest when Lieutenant Tula burst into his office, a bioluminescent spot spelling out Eureka in flashing neon colors. Admiral. I figured it out, she exclaimed, scattering his carefully organized papers with her enthusiastic entrance. I was watching Earth Entertainment Archives for research purposes, definitely not because I'm addicted to their cooking shows when it hit me. Lieutenant, please, Krix began, but Tula was already projecting a holographic display. Look at human history. Every major advancement they've made, every crisis they've survived, every problem they've solved, they did it all wrong. But it worked anyway. Her spots were now cycling through patterns so quickly they were probably violating several laws of physics. That's not a survival strategy, Krix protested. That's just chaos. Exactly. Tula's excitement caused several nearby data crystals to vibrate. Their secret weapon isn't their technology, or their biology, or even their caffeine-fueled productivity. It's their ability to thrive in chaos. They don't just adapt to it, they generate it, shape it, and somehow turn it into solutions that shouldn't work but do. Krix stared at the mounting evidence. Humans had achieved faster than light travel because someone wondered if you could drift in space. They'd solved world hunger through a series of cooking mishaps and memes about food fusion. They'd even established first contact with 3 different alien species by accidentally broadcasting their cat videos into space. Computer, Krix asked weakly, what is the statistical probability of a species advancing through such methods? Calculating. Error probability does not compute. Human progress appears to operate outside normal parameters of causality. As if to prove the point, Krix's communicator chirped with a message from Dave. Hey, alien friends. Just wanted to let you know I used that logic puzzle solution from your test to fix our office's scheduling system. Accidentally discovered unified field theory while trying to optimize my coffee brewing time. No big deal. Want to grab lunch? Krix's tentacles went limp as the truth finally hit him. He began typing his final report to the Galactic Council. After extensive research, I must report that humans represent a unique threat to galactic stability not through any conventional means, but through their fundamental nature as agents of controlled chaos. They don't merely survive despite their illogical approaches, they succeed because of them. They have turned their complete disregard for proper procedure into a methodology. They have weaponized their tendency to wing it. They have evolved to thrive in conditions that would drive any rational species to madness. Most concerning of all, they appear to be spreading this approach. 3 of our research staff have already started consuming coffee and using the phrase, "Let's see what happens." Lieutenant P. has begun experimenting with what she calls intuitive science and has somehow achieved better results than our standard methods. Recommendation: classify humans as a class of reality-bending species. Their greatest weapon is their ability to be simultaneously the most adaptable and the most unpredictable species in known space. They don't just think outside the box, they forget the box exists, use it as a coffee table, and somehow achieve transcendental insights in the process. Final note: I am taking an indefinite leave of absence. Dave has invited me to something called a game night, where apparently humans gather to engage in structured fun that inevitably devolves into glorious chaos. For research purposes, of course. End report. P.S. Does anyone know how to remove coffee stains from quantum encrypted documents? Asking for a friend. The Galactic Council's response was swift and unprecedented. For the first time in its million-year history, it issued a single-line decree. The aftermath. 1 year after Admiral Krix's groundbreaking report, the Galactic Council found itself dealing with an unexpected diplomatic crisis. Every alien species wanted to send their representatives to Earth, not to study humans, but to hang out with them. The Council chamber, once a bastion of order and procedure, had undergone some noticeable changes. Several representatives had started bringing coffee to meetings. Others had begun using Earth phrases like, "Let's brainstorm," and "What's the worst that could happen?" The Silicon Consciousness Collective had even started using emojis in their official communications. Supreme Councilor Vex'thor called the chamber to order by tapping his ceremonial gavel, which now had a small rubber duck attached to it, a gift from Dave Miller during his recent speaking tour on the art of productive chaos. The Council recognizes that our initial assessment of humanity as a threat was technically correct, but for entirely wrong reasons, Vex'thor announced, his antennae twitching in what had become a surprisingly human-like shrug. They are, indeed, changing the very fabric of galactic society, just not through conquest or technology, but through what they call vibes and going with the flow. The evidence was undeniable. Productivity across the galaxy had actually increased since various species started adopting human approaches to problem-solving. The Regulax had discovered that occasionally ignoring proper procedure led to revolutionary breakthroughs. Even the quantum jellyfish had started experimenting with improvisation, leading to the first ever spontaneous space-time jazz fusion concert. Meanwhile, Dave Miller had become an unlikely diplomatic celebrity. His book, The Office Worker's Guide to the Galaxy: Why Your Printer Problems Prepared You for First Contact, had become required reading at the Galactic Academy. His method of applying mundane solutions to cosmic problems had sparked a revolution in xenoscience. Admiral Krix, to everyone's surprise, had embraced the change most dramatically of all. He could now be found running chaos appreciation workshops for bureaucrats across the galaxy. His latest seminar, Everything I Need to Know About Universal Law I Learned from Coffee Stains, had a waiting list 3 light-years long. Lieutenant P. had established the first Galactic Institute for Improvisational Science, where researchers were encouraged to just try stuff and see what happens. Their motto: if it looks stupid but it works, it's not stupid. But the true revelation came during what was supposed to be a formal diplomatic ceremony. Dave, now Earth's accidental ambassador to the galaxy, was scheduled to give a presentation on human innovation. He showed up late, coffee in hand, with the wrong slides and a half-finished presentation. What followed was 2 hours of pure improvisation that somehow resulted in 3 new scientific theories, 5 interstellar trade agreements, and a revolutionary approach to faster-than-light travel involving, of all things, the physics of dunking cookies in hot beverages. It was then that the galaxy finally understood humanity's true superpower, their ability to turn their greatest weaknesses into strengths. Their disorganization led to creativity. Their procrastination led to efficiency. Their caffeine addiction led to enlightenment. They had mastered the art of failing upward so completely that they had turned it into a legitimate methodology. The Galactic Council's new official policy on humans was itself a testament to this influence. It consisted of just 3 lines. 1. Let humans do their thing. 2. Don't ask how it works. 3. Just accept that it does. And a hastily added 4th line: 4. Coffee machines to be installed in all diplomatic facilities. As for the official documentation of human capabilities, it was finally filed under a new category: species that succeed through methods that shouldn't work, but somehow do anyway. See also coffee, chaos theory, and why not to question it. The final report in Admiral Krix's now legendary series concluded with a personal note. After extensive research, countless observations, and approximately 47,293 cups of coffee, I have come to understand that the true danger humans pose to the galaxy is not their unpredictability, but their ability to make unpredictability work for them. They have taught us that sometimes the best way to maintain order is to embrace a little chaos. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm late for game night at Dave's. We're playing something called Jenga while brainstorming solutions to the universe's fundamental paradoxes. Last week we almost solved dark matter, but got distracted by pizza. End report. P.S. Still haven't figured out how to remove coffee stains from quantum encrypted documents. At this point I'm considering them performance art.